So again, we're doing a multi-series episode on Vans because their trademark portfolio is so expansive. And part of the reason also why I want to focus 3 days to Vans is because they have a lot of really, really creative ways of protecting their clothing and their goods using trademarks. Again, Vans, iconic brand, known for their checkered pattern on their shoes especially, but they also have clothing. So let's get into it. Let's look at today. Let's see what trademarks they have related to clothing. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, cool. So I'm a little ahead of the game. Let me back up though. I want to start from the very beginning. Let's go to tsdr.uspto.gov. I like to start these shows as if we were starting from the very beginning, just because I feel like it's useful just to see, especially for viewers who are doing this for the first time. If you guys want to research a particular company, the place to start is by going to tsdr.uspto.gov, and then you will want to click on search trademarks. Now, once you're in search trademarks, we're going to do an advanced search today. And the reason for that is because I want to show you guys how you guys can find clothing items for Vans. Now, I'm going to zoom in because it's a little zoomed out so you guys can actually see what I'm doing. So as you can see, we're going to put Vans Inc. in quotes. And OW stands for owner. Now, if you don't know what the codes are, that's fine. You don't need to know what the codes are because they're indicated down below. If you go down below, you'll see that owner is right here. So owner name and address. And then the other code that we're going to use is GS, which stands for goods and services, which is right here. So I'm going to go ahead and put clothing, and I'm going to say or apparel. That's because sometimes the description has apparel but not clothing, and vice versa. Sometimes there's clothing but not apparel. So I want to cover up everything. So I'm going to put an or in there. Now, when I hit submit query, you're going to see we get many results. That's because Vans is a really, really strong brand. They have a lot of different trademarks, so something to keep in mind. Now, you guys can see this clearly, I believe. So let's get into it. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on image list. That's because I want to be able to see all their marks a little more easily. Now I'm going to zoom out. Now the first mark here, we actually talked about this yesterday. This is pending, but this is actually a tag. This is actually a label that gets affixed to the goods or so the clothing or shoes. But it's covering multiple classes, including class 25 and also bags under class 18. So as you can see, it covers clothing, but it also covers, I believe it also covers footwear. So footwear, does it cover footwear? I believe it came up yesterday in our search, but maybe I'm not seeing it right now. Maybe it doesn't cover footwear. So this is one mark, and this is interesting to me because as you guys can see, this is a label. It's both sides of a label. Now it's kind of hard to tell from this figure, but what you're looking at is you're looking at the front of a label that has the Vans in front of the checkered pattern, and you're then the back of the label that also has the checkered pattern. So let's go back. Let's go check out what other interesting marks that we can find. So you can see various word marks, various logos, Vault, the V, Vans Best Friend, Side Stripe, Channel 66, 30 T's. So all these are just brands, logos, combinations, composite marks as they're referred to. Here's the Vans Off the Wall, the famous turtle. Now here, this is interesting. So this is a trademark covering a sock. So these are socks that have the checkered pattern on the front of the socks. Pretty interesting, guys. Let's see if we can actually see. So they filed under 1A, which means that this has already, they've already submitted a statement of use. So let's go and check out the specimen that was submitted. This was submitted in 2019. And if I zoom out, here are the socks. You see them. So here are the socks. Here's the checkered pattern. So again, really, really creative use of trademarks, protecting the actual design on the sock. So something to think about, especially if you guys are putting out clothing or anything that has a unique design to it, you might want to consider also filing a trademark application. In addition, a trademark application on the design, the pattern, in addition, of course, to the wording of the brand and to any logo that you might have. So I'm going to zoom out again so we can see clearly. Here's another interesting trademark. So this covers the checkered pattern along the sides of the garment. Okay, so along the sides of the garment, this checkered pattern, this is protected and covered by this Vans trademark. So let's go into TSDR. Let's take a look at the specimen that was submitted. This one's particularly interesting to me because, again, this is a pattern on a long sleeve shirt. Let's see what was submitted. And this has already been registered. So there you have it right there. So there's the clothing item, and it's got the pattern along the side of the arm. Again, more logos, more word marks, Van Park series. Now, this is the actual pattern. So this is a trademark on the pattern. So this is the iconic Vans pattern that everyone associates with Vans. Let's see what specimen they submitted for this particular mark. I'm going to go into TSDR. Let's check it out. So again, this was submitted in 2019, and here you have it. There you have it. So there's a pattern right there. So that pattern by itself, Vans is saying, serves as a source identifier of Vans goods. Now here are pants. So remember earlier we saw the long sleeve shirt right here. Now these are pants, okay? And the pants now along the sides have the checkered pattern running along the sides. Let's see if we can make it a little bigger, maybe a little easier for you guys to see. So there you have it. So there's along the side of the pants, the checkered pattern. Let's see if we can see the specimen. This was also submitted in 2019. There you have it. So there's a checkered pattern running along the side of the legging. Again, this is a really interesting episode because this just goes to show that if you put clothing out there and you have a distinctive pattern on the clothing, you might want to consider also filing a trademark application on the pattern that's on the clothing, not just the brand name that's used to sell the clothing, not just the logo, but the actual pattern on the clothing itself. We saw a very similar thing yesterday when we were looking at shoes. Now this looks like, so these are tops. Let's see what exactly is being protected here. So this is the checkered pattern. So this is a checkered pattern affixed to the side seam of the clothing. So the side seam. Let's see if we can get a better understanding of what this trademark is covering. So here it is right here. It's kind of hard to see. It's on the corner. I'm zooming in all the way, but it's right here. Now, let's take a look. Let's see if we can see an actual specimen of this. This is submitted in 2019. Here you have it right here, the side seam, lower right corner. So again, a creative way to maximize coverage of your trademarks. You should look also at distinctive patterns that are on the items that you're putting out on the market. That's the big takeaway from this episode and from Vans' clothing portfolio. This is a logo. We can take a look at it. We can see a specimen that was submitted for this one. Let's take a look. This was submitted back in 2018. So there you have it. So there's very interesting. So this is the pattern that appears on the face of the long sleeve shirt. So, and this is the mark right here. See if I can make it a little bigger. So this is the shirt, and this is what was trademarked. This one is actually still pending. Here's another long sleeve shirt where the checkered pattern, it looks like running horizontal along the long sleeve shirt. Let's see. Okay, so this is a little easier to see. So as you can see, and we'll go look at the specimen as well, just to give it a little more context. But as you can see, this checkered pattern right here. And let's see what specimens were submitted. So it's good to look at specimens. It gives the actual drawing a little more context, especially in the marketplace. It gives you a better sense of what the product is. So here you have it. Now, one thing I'll point out here is that it's interesting that Vans decided not to file their mark with the Vans wording in the middle. That's because they already have plenty of marks on the Vans logo. So they want to cover the side checkered pattern and this long strip that goes along in between both checkered blocks. So pretty interesting that they intentionally didn't include Vans within the very center. So let's see what other interesting marks we can find. Now here, this looks like we're probably going to see the version with the Vans. So if I open image in a new tab and make it a little bigger, it's a little easier to see. It's kind of hard to see right now. Let's see. So there's that application with the Vans. Now this one abandoned. Looks like they didn't respond to an office action, but nonetheless, pretty interesting. Now, see now, okay, so here's another. So this looks like the waffle design. This is covering clothing and footwear. Now we looked at this one yesterday. We can look at the specimen again. Okay, now, interestingly, if you'll note, look at where the waffle pattern shows up. This actually shows up on the store display. So the store display up top is what this mark is covering. So it's because that's what's presented to the consumer. And so the consumer associates that waffle pattern with Vans, which is why Vans decided, well, let's file a trademark application on this waffle pattern. It's sufficiently distinctive and consumers associate it with our goods. Now let's read a little bit about how they describe it. So it's a repeating pattern of stylized waffle design. Again, more logos, more words, more composite marks having blends of both design elements and also word elements. Now, this looks like a very, very simple mark. So this is just, looks like a squiggly line. So they call it a wave line. Let's take a look at this and see how exactly they were able to get this through. So here's a squiggly line right here. This is the wavy line running across the hoodie. Here's some more waffle patterns. Looks like this is still pending. Still 1B status. This is also a 1B status, so they haven't submitted specimens yet. Actually, this one abandoned, interestingly. Now, before we move on to these jeans, and the soles, I want to talk about this collage right here too. This is pretty interesting. So again, this one's abandoned now, but still interesting to see. So this was what was actually applied for, is this collage. It's a good reminder that collage, it's possible to also protect with trademark. Now let's take a look at what was submitted in this particular case. Oh, it looks like there was never a, yeah, so it was rejected for some reason. Now let's take a look at these jeans here. So it's a checker design placed on the upper right waistband of the jeans. Let's go into TSDR. Let's take a look at the actual, let's get a better look of the mark. Let's see why this isn't working. Maybe this system, now this was actually abandoned, but it's still interesting to check it out. We can still learn stuff just by looking. So if we go into it, we can see this was abandoned, but we can still see what specimen was submitted. Now this was submitted in 2010, so it's a little older, but there you have it. So there's a checkered pattern that's appearing on the right side of the upper waistband of the jeans. Now let's go back. Let's see what there aren't too many more marks that I want to talk about. So this is another one very similar, also one abandoned. Word patch on. Yeah. Now again, same specimen. Go back, let's see what other, so here are the soles. So we talked about these yesterday, but again, Vans has trademarks on the actual sole of the shoe. Pretty interesting. If you guys want to learn more about that, I highly encourage you guys to go back and check out yesterday's episode. But since we're here, I'll just show you guys again real quick. So this is the actual undersole of a shoe, and they have a trademark on that pattern because that waffle pattern is sufficiently distinctive to be a source identifier for their goods. And if I show you the specimen, you'll see, so here's on the actual item of clothing. See if we can find another specimen. So here's the specimen here on the side, so you can see the sole of the shoe. Now, what's interesting, though, is that mark wasn't covering the sole of the shoe. That was actually covering it's essentially a logo that appears on the clothing, but still interesting to see it, how it's used, see how it's covered. So same mark, but it's actually used also to protect the actual sole of the shoe because that pattern was sufficiently distinctive. Again, a lot of word marks, triple crown off the wall. Off the Wall is probably one of their most popular. And then just for fun, let's look at this Vans mark. So again, as I mentioned at the end of yesterday, so relatively old marks. This is 1999, but we saw some that were from 1967 yesterday. So really old brand. Now remember, that's because they started out as a shoe company. So that is Vans. Again, really interesting company, worth researching, worth seeing how they go about protecting their goods with trademarks. This also went abandoned, but just for one last one, we'll just take a quick look. This is from 2009. And you see what they're protecting here is the shape right here, the shape of the tag that goes on the shoes. So pretty interesting. So consider shapes, consider the shapes of items, of various items. Don't limit your thinking to just words. Don't limit your thinking to just logos when you're looking at trademarks. Think about the packaging. Think about the actual patterns that are on the goods. Think about how the patterns are arranged. Think about how panels are arranged. Think about how stitching appears on clothing. Don't limit your thinking to just words and just logos. Remember, trademarks cover anything that can be used as a source identifier to protect your goods and services and to identify your goods and services as coming from you in the marketplace. I hope you guys found this content really useful and helpful. And if you guys have questions about intellectual property that you guys want covered on the show, please send them to Victoria. You can email her at victoria@adibiip.com, victoria@adibiip.com. Send her your questions, send her ideas for shows, anything that you guys think would be neat for us to cover. Let us know. We'd love to have it on the show. We also have a community number, so please text us at 415-943-5193, 415-943-5193. I'd love to have you in my text community. You'd get direct text access to me. You can send me your questions, ideas for shows. We'll try to get your ideas on the show.